Hello friends, myself Professor Khemchand Surana from the Department of Pharmaceutical Chemistry. Today we will discuss about the anti-tubercular agents. Now initially we will see about the introduction of tuberculosis. So as we know that tuberculosis is the most prevalent infectious disease worldwide and leading killer caused by a single infectious agent, that is Mycobacterian tuberculosis. The single infectious agent, which is what the Mycobacterian tuberculosis, which is the causative agent for the tuberculosis. According to the WHO, means World Health Organization reports, Mycobacterian tuberculosis currently infects over 2 billion people worldwide. So as per the report of WHO, currently there are 2 million people were infected with this TB, with 30 million new cases reported every year. In every single year there means 30 million new cases were reported. This intracellular infectious accounts for at least 3 million deaths annually, and also the annually at least means minimum 3 million deaths were seen. The common sites of tuberculosis are lungs, which is the primary side of the infection of tuberculosis. Second is brain, then bones, liver, and kidney. So these are what the sites or the area you can say where the tuberculosis were infected. Basically, the main symptoms are cough, tachycardia, cyanosis, and respiratory failure. So when these kinds of symptoms is where you can observe, you can say the patient were suffering from the tuberculosis. So depending upon the site of infection, so we have seen the different sites where the tuberculosis were infected. So depending on these sites of infections, the disease can be categorized as the first, pulmonary tuberculosis, where the respiratory tract is infected basically. Then genitourinary tuberculosis, in that the genitourinary tract is infected. Then tuberculous meningitis, means into the nervous system the TB were infected, the nervous system area, that is what the infected area. Then last one is the miliary tuberculosis, which is a widespread infectious. So these are what the depending upon the site of infectious, these tuberculosis were classified. Now these are what the basic symptoms is. The cough is what the major one. Then afternoon fever, in means during the afternoon there what the fever. Then weight loss, then blood stains sputum, and night sweat. So these are what the symptoms is of tuberculosis. Now the common symptoms is the coughing that lasts longer than 2 weeks with green, yellow, or bloody sputum. The coughing is what the major kind of a symptom for this tuberculosis, that longer than means more than 2 weeks with the sputum with green, yellow, or bloody. Then weight loss, as we have already discussed, fatigue, then fever, night sweat, chills, chest pain, shortness of breath, and loss of appetite. So these are what the common symptoms of tuberculosis. Here the pictorial diagram is given over here. The main symptoms is of pulmonary tuberculosis. So pulmonary tuberculosis were affected in this area into the central system, appetite loss and fatigue will be there. Into the lungs there will be a chest pain, coughing of blood, productive prolonged cough, means for long period of time there is a cough with green, yellow, or bloody sputum. Then skin, night sweat, and pallor. So these are what the basic common symptoms of tuberculosis. So now next part is what the cell wall of mycobacteria. So this need to study because these different components of this mycobacterial cell wall has been the targeted of your basic treatment. So you just need to know about the what are the different components or what is the cell wall components of Mycobacteria. So this is what the basic structure of Mycobacteria as you have seen into the slide. So the porine will be there, then surface protein, acyl lipids will be there, then mycolic acid. The mycolic acid is what the major target of these anti-tubercular drugs, then arabinogalactan, then lipoarabinomannan, peptidoglycan, then next is what the PIM, phosphatidol inositol monocytes. So these are what the basic component, then cytoplasmic membrane. In these all the structures or components you can call the mycolic acid. Basically there is the uh, major target of your anti-tubercular agents. Next we will see the unique cell wall constituent. These cell wall constituent also useful for the designing of new anti-tubercular agent on the basis of these cell wall constitutes. So into the mycobacterium cell wall there are mainly the 60% of lipid is there, then mycolic acid as we already seen into the basic structure of mycobacteria, then lipoarabinomannan is there, then acetylated trehalose dimycolate called factor, then mycosite. In mycosite the example phenolic glycolipids in Mycobacterium leprae. So this is Mycobacterium leprae is what the causative organism of leprosy is there. Okay, so these are what the basic constituent of Mycobacterium cell wall. After that the causative agent. So what is the basic causative agent which will produce these tuberculosis? So of the pathogenic species belonging to the Mycobacterium tuberculosis complex, the most common important agent of human disease is Mycobacterium tuberculosis. Means the agent which will cause the tuberculosis is the Mycobacterium tuberculosis. Basically these agent having a complex Mycobacterium tuberculosis complex. The most common and important agent of human disease is Mycobacterium tuberculosis. The Mycobacterium tuberculosis is major one. After that the complex includes Mycobacterium bovis, Mycobacterium capri, Mycobacterium africanum, Mycobacterium microti and Mycobacterium canete. So you need to remember these all the pathogenic species of pathogenic species of tuberculosis as per your GPAT examination. Also Mycobacterium bovis, Mycobacterium capri, Mycobacterium africanum, Mycobacterium microti and Mycobacterium canete. So these are what all the causative agents of Mycobacterium tuberculosis. Now next we will go through the treatment that we have to learn. So basically initially we will go through the drugs which will use for the tuberculosis are called as an anti-tubercular agent, and these agents can be classified into the two basic categories. So according to the line of treatment, so two basic categories: first line drugs and second line drugs. So first line drugs include isoniazid, streptomycin, rifampicin, ethambutol and pyrazinamide. So these are what all the first line drugs. Then second line drugs: ethionamide, para-aminosalicylic acid, ofloxacin, ciprofloxacin, as already we have discussed into the quinolone antibacterial, also used into the second line treatment of antitubercular. Then cycloserine, amikacin, kanamycin, viomycin and capreomycin. All these mycins are what antibiotics which we have to see into the future. So this is what the basic classification of antitubercular agent. On the basis of line of treatment you need to remember these. So further, on the basis of action of drug for antitubercular activity, the antitubercular agent were also classified into two basic categories: standard drugs and reserve drugs. So again standard drugs were divided into two basic categories on the basis of their action. So Standard drugs were classified into bactericidal and bacteriostatic. Similarly, reverse drugs were also classified into bactericidal and bacteriostatic. So standard drugs in that first bactericidal include isoniazide, means isonicotinic acid hydrazide. This is what the similar name or another name of isoniazide. Rifampicin, streptomycin, pyrazinamide. Then bacteriostatic in that include ethambutol, thioacetazole. So this is what all the standard drugs. Then reserved drugs include again bactericidal, in that the capreomycin, kanamycin and fluoroquinolones. Then bacteriostatic agent ethionamide, cycloserine, para-aminosalicylic acid. So this is what the another classification you need to remember as per your GPAT examination. Now the last classification as per your medicinal chemistry point of view and your theory exam point of view, this classification is you need to remember. Also in GPAT also the basics moiety has been asked of anti-tubercular agent. So on the basis of chemical moieties, again the anti-tubercular agent will classify into these 6 categories. So first is what the salicylic acid derivatives. Salicylic acid derivatives, example para-aminosalicylic acid. Second is pyridine derivatives, isoniazide, ethionamide and prothionamide. These are all pyridine derivatives. Then pyrazine derivatives. Pyrazine derivatives, example pyrazinamide. Ethylene diaminobutanol derivative, ethambutol, example. Antibiotics, streptomycin, rifampicin, kanamycin. And last one is the miscellaneous class, in that the fluoroquinolones and macrolides antibiotics will be there. Fluoroquinolones, ofloxacin and ciprofloxacin is there, and macrolides azithromycin and clarithromycin is there. So this is what the another classification of anti-tubercular agent. You need to remember this. So for today this is what the sufficient. From next session we will discuss about the details of every drugs with their SAR, mechanism of action and adverse effect. So till that, happy learning and thank you.